As you can see, some of the truckers are in court still. And our own reporter, Sydney Fizzard, is here to talk about it. Sid, great to see you again.
Likewise, great to see both of you here. It's I got to admit, it's a lot easier to do the live streams in my own room. There's no people around, very comfortable environment. But it's a pleasure to be joining you guys, and it's a very interesting night tonight.
Well, you're doing great, and these headphones sort of help. I mean, this place hasn't even really filled up yet.
No.
There's still hundreds and hundreds of seats. I think most of the media behind me are just sort of killing time and kibitzing. We've been talking about a number of things, Sid, including Western separatism. We talked to Keane Simone about that. But what's going on in southern Alberta? You were covering the trucker blockade, which was also a farmer blockade. And I sort of thought those things were done, and the Alberta government said, okay, we're going to lay off. But they were actually in court just 2 days ago, weren't they?
Oh yeah, they were in court with Williamson Law, of course, through truckerlawyer.ca. They're being helped out through crowdfunding. And even in this recent court appearance, there was a very large crowd of supporters, people who might as well have just heard about it through one way or another. And dozens upon dozens, I think the estimate was around 200 people came out to support. And this is an early morning thing during the week.
This was in Lethbridge, was it?
Yes, correct. Sorry. This is Lethbridge. The Lethbridge courthouse is where Alex, George, and Marco, the three individuals in question, were to appear. Now they're going to be back in court on November 4th, at which point we're going to find out a little bit more, and the case will start to unravel from that point. And I'm very looking forward to it.
So these are charges that emanated from the blockade. Do you recall what the name of the charges is? These are criminal code offenses, are they?
Well, the three charges are mischief over $5,000. And for some of the individuals, not all of them, there was some traffic violations, some minor stuff that came beforehand. But these three new charges, they came with a press release or a news statement by the RCP that alleged that these three individuals were, quote, key participants of the blockade. Which is kind of where these charges stem from. But of course, that's a bidding question at the moment.
Right. Now, you were embedded in, I think it was a saloon really at the border. And so those faces, I recognize at least two of those faces. Were these guys sort of the leaders of the trucker movement?
No, I would not say that.
Well, that's sort of, and maybe one reason not to say that is because that's what the Crown alleges here, and they're trying to hang that around their neck. Yeah. I'm not looking to, I'm not looking to make you a witness. I'm not looking to put you in a pickle. But it's very interesting.
Well, I can add one thing, and that is when I was at the blockade, I said, and I believe we published this, where it was kind of like a council of truckers that came together. I didn't ever see an organization, a leader. It was kind of like guys were just, in a sense, raising their hands and being like, problem.
We saw some of the council of truckers. That sounds great. I got to tell you, Sid, I would trust a council of truckers more than I would trust any given school board, city council, provincial legislature, or our own parliament. A council of truckers probably has more common sense in their little pinky than any professional politician in the country. Council of truckers, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's a very fascinating group of people. And one thing that I think is kind of on the back burner, the Coots blockade, people, they familiarize themselves with that term. They might think it's a small group of people that were there and they saw the footage, just a couple of trucks on the road. But when Jason Kenney made that announcement to minimize what the blockade was, he was ignoring the thousands of people that were showing up in Milk River, where the police, exactly, because of the police barriers.
It was actually a police blockade. Yeah. The truckers were letting vehicles pass, but the police didn't seal the whole thing off. It was this vast area in the country. But the last town before you get to this border, Coots is just a really small, I'd almost call it a village.
It's not even, it's not even a border stop.
Yeah. Whereas Milk River is actually a town. But that's where they blocked people. It was the same thing in Ottawa, by the way. When I went to Ottawa, it wasn't the truckers that were blocking all the streets. It was the cops that were. And I think the same thing happened in Milk River. This is very interesting. You mentioned that Chad Williamson is the lawyer, and I remember we dispatched him down there. In fact, I think I wouldn't be surprised if Chad comes here tonight to this event. Rebel News decided. I think it was you and Kean called me from down there. You were with the men, and things were going sideways. The RCMP was being a little slippery.
Exactly.
They were negotiating in bad faith. And I thought, and you thought, and Kean Simone thought, things could go sideways here. Let's send a lawyer down to calm things down, tell people their rights, to be sort of a kind of lubricant. Mm-hmm. between the truckers and the cops.
That's exactly it. And I still remember that conversation because it was a very tense night, right? A lot of those 16 days are still very vivid. But it was just the truckers were there. They weren't. It didn't feel like they were asking for much at the time. It was just a matter of, we feel like the RCMP, the negotiators that were being sent, they're not treating us fairly. They're not having an honest conversation with us. And how do we, a bunch of random guys, have a serious, a formal conversation with the officers to have that dialogue built? Because if it's just a bunch of random guys who show up, of course, it is a little chaotic at first. And that I remember is like, you know, they wanted somebody to kind of mitigate or to be between them and the officers. And I think it was a very great thing that we sent Chad down there.
I think we also saved them from entrapment.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, Sid, we're going to talk more about this, and we played a snippet of your latest report. We'll definitely be there on November 4th. And then we look straight in the camera and say, folks, Rebel News is going to crowdfund Chad Williamson's legal bills. Go to truckerlawyer.ca if you want to help. Sid, we're going to say goodbye to you. We're going to roll an ad, and when we come back, we're going to have Danielle Smith's campaign manager, Matt Altheim, in the seat. Thanks for popping by the show.
That'd be very exciting. I look forward to that one.
All right, there you have it. Sidney Fizzard. He was down there on the scene in Coops.